to Teacher Therapy. Today we have a very special guest named Katrina, and she is going to talk to us about what it's been like for her to teach in Poland and then come teach in New York. If you can imagine, she has so many stories and experiences she wants to share. So I don't want to waste any time. Let's jump right in, Katrina. I would love to know, what was your biggest struggle teaching in New York?
In general, it was lack of respect, no rules. So that was the biggest struggle. And I think that the problem is I had a completely different perspective because I came from Europe. So sometimes when I speak or I spoke before with my colleagues from America who only taught here, they didn't have really a different perspective. So for me personally, it was a big problem because I always compare how it was in Poland, but also I know how it was in Switzerland. I know how it was in Germany. I know how it was in UK. So for me, it was quite a shock because I needed to deal with a completely different curriculum, with completely different system of education, with completely different rules when it comes to administration, and completely different rules when it comes to how the administration and then parents and kids treat teachers. So that was pretty big thing for me because I needed to learn from the beginning. So when you go to the school, when you're a teacher, when you go to the school, you just need to adjust to new environment. When I started to work as a teacher, I needed to adjust not only to a new school, but also to new rules. And that was really tough because, as I said, in Europe, I can say in general in Europe, because I know how it looks like in many different countries. The teacher is still a really, really authoritative figure, which means here, when you say that you are a teacher, not mention when you say you are a preschool teacher or a kindergarten teacher, nobody never treats you seriously, which is very sad. First of all, because as I said, in Europe, teacher, it's like on a really, really high level in society. Here, when I met someone and I told them I'm a teacher, it was like, okay, so what do you teach? And when I mentioned, because I was a STEM teacher in different schools with different levels, but also I was a regular kindergarten teacher. So when I mentioned I'm a kindergarten teacher, I heard, oh, so you are not a serious teacher. Okay, that was pretty rough. But I've never really heard, oh, that's cool. That's cool that you're a teacher because you are changing lives. You are making a difference. So I felt like I'm doing something nobody really appreciates and nobody cares about it. So that was very difficult. Then curriculum. When I compare it to Poland, because I have the biggest experience from my home country, from a very, very, very young age, kids are learning everything, like philosophy, like logic, like music, like world history, geography, everything. Here is just, when it comes to history, it's a very little about the world history. It's all about American history. When it comes to geography, it's also mostly the United States, maybe the North America, but that's it. So that was also very difficult because I noticed that I really don't know what I really teach them. Plus, when I was a kindergarten teacher, I noticed that kids who are like 5 years old, but to be honest, it started in the preschool. So kids 4 years old, kids 5 years old, they learned how to write, read, and there was nothing like play-based teaching or learning for them. It was all like cognitive learning, which was pretty difficult because when you are 4, and probably nobody really remembered when we were 4 years old, this is not a way. It's kind of like we start to put the shoes on before we put socks on. So this is something I learned in Europe when I studied education. So it was something completely different, and that was quite a challenge. But also a very difficult thing was to work with special needs kids. And this is really, really tough subject because I am not a specialist. I've never studied special education. I'm not qualified to do this. But it's not only me, but also my colleagues. We were forced to do this without proper knowledge and qualification. So it was also difficult to define the special needs. So, for example, in Poland, we don't have excuses, we have documentation. Here, you can just come and say, my kid has some issues. We don't know what kind of issues because we've never seen a documentation, and parents never really said anything what kind of issues kids have. So in Poland, if a child has, let's say, autism or ADHD or any other condition, it's officially documented with proper medical and educational assessments. So teacher knows what they are dealing with and how can adjust accordingly. But here it was no documentation, no support, just excuses. So whatever happened, a student was throwing chairs, student was screaming, student was beating up other kids. Oh, he's just sensitive. Okay. Even when a student was diagnosed, teachers often are not allowed to see the documentation. So how can we help a kid if we don't even know what's going on? As I said, we are not trained to handle that kind of extreme behavioral issues, but we were expected to deal with them without any resources, without any authority. So that was like lack of structures, and it creates a chaos in the classroom. So in Poland, if a student is a special needs student, this is properly addressed. Here, I feel like it's ignored until it becomes a really, really huge problem. And then teachers are blamed because they didn't handle it better. So that was also very, very, very difficult. Also, when I compare, I felt like here parents refused to acknowledge issues if there was one. So if something happened, usually it was everything's fine, we can handle it. Well, the thing is, you didn't. So they refused that there is a problem. Another thing, no documentation, no transparency. Also, in Poland, if a student has a condition, the school, teachers, principal, administration, psychologist, therapist, whoever is there, and of course parents work together with full transparency. Here we were left in the dark, expected to deal with this without any preparation. So that was very, very difficult. So this is when it comes to details. But in general, the biggest problem for me, it was, as I said in the beginning, the complete lack of respect from everyone, from students, from parents, from administration. I just felt like no matter how much effort I put in, I was fighting a losing battle because the system itself was working against teachers. Well, this is the funny thing, the system. But actually, behind the system, we have people. So someone designed that. So discipline was non-existent, and students knew exactly they could get away with anything, and parents also were not very helpful. It was quite opposite. Parents saw teachers as an enemy, so they didn't want to cooperate. It was opposite. Teachers were always people who were blamed, even if we knew that the fault is somewhere in a house. And you can say right away when the kid comes to the classroom what kind of kid it is, what kind of trouble the kid has, and how it is at home. So probably the final straw for me, it was realizing that administration cares more about keeping parents happy, not even children, but parents happy, that actually maintaining a really good learning environment. So it's all about making parents happy and all about also numbers, so we can show how great we are because we have such a great numbers. I felt like very often students were the ones who run the classroom because teachers have no real authority, and of course parents administrations side with them, and any attempt at discipline, it was seen as too harsh or it was a tyranny. So whenever we said something about discipline, about rules, it was like we are not the teachers, we are in the Nazi camp. I'm just I don't know what to say, because as I said, in Europe is completely different discipline. This is absolutely everything, but nobody says that the discipline is a tyranny, that we force kids to, I don't know what. So as I said, it was also more about keeping parents happy. So we were in a position when we were constantly walking on eggshells, afraid that just one kid who is not satisfied can lie to a parent, and then the situation makes us to get fired. I know a teacher, he's still a teacher, and he told me that he wakes up every day and he thinks how to survive another day at school, because he knows that if he does something wrong, I have no idea what does it mean, he can be sued and he can be fired, because you never know what can happen. So I feel like schools were very afraid of upsetting anyone. So that's why standards also keep dropping. I feel like in Europe, it's more like you are expected to learn, behave, and be respectful to the teacher, to the principal, to the whole administration. Otherwise, you can face real consequences. And this is the biggest difference. Here, there is no real consequences, except you can face a real consequences, not a kid, not a parent, not an administration. So I can give you one example. How does it look like? And that was the moment after I decided I can't do this anymore, at least not here. It was an incident with a student. We all knew that she is a troublemaker. She was, I believe, 9 years old, and everybody was afraid of her, of 9-year-old girl. She was absolutely terrible when it comes to behavior, but there was something more to that. She was able to carry her phone with her all the time because she got a permission, and she openly recorded teachers, and she also kept saying that whatever she records, it will be used against us. We also knew that that was not her first school. and she was a great troublemaker in different schools. But she was just, I don't believe she was removed. Probably the mother just put her in a different school. So we knew that she did it before. We knew that she fabricated incidents in the past to get teachers in trouble. But it was not only her, it was the mother as well. She was practically every day at school, and if she was not there, she was calling, and she was complaining every single day how horrible people we are, that we treated the daughter, who is very sensitive, very unfairly. And meantime, the girl's behavior was just not acceptable. And I'm not talking only about her not appropriate uh, outfit, because she was coming practically every day in her pajamas and slippers with headphones on, with a very, very mocking look. So also that's another thing. I've never seen something like that in Poland, because even if it's not a school with uniforms, because there are schools still with uniforms, you know the dress code. There is no such a thing like pajamas, flip flops, too short shorts, or just, if your outfit is not appropriate, you have to be sent back home, and your parents are immediately at the principal's office. So that was also really interesting to see that. But back to her, I had a very bad experience with her, because I dared to say something. And once she just said directly to me, "Why are you staring at me, you stupid?" She used a B word. I've never heard anybody to say something like that to me as a teacher. So I was shocked. So I was like, "Excuse me?" Because I couldn't believe it actually happened. And she repeated, "You hurt me." And she used again B word. So I tried to get a grip, and I said calmly, "How dare you speak to another person like that, to a teacher?" And that was the best part of it, because she knew that we have cameras, and I was standing with my back to the cameras. She was in the front of cameras. So suddenly she pretended that I tried to, I don't know, grab her, or maybe even hit, because she did something like that, like she protected herself. And I was really, really confused what's going on here. But that was just the beginning, because then she threw herself on the floor. She started to roll on it, yelling, and she repeated, like, constantly, "Don't touch me, don't touch me." I was standing doing nothing, and she was screaming. And it was quite a performance. And after that, I also learned from my colleagues that that was not the first time. Of course, I reported that, because that was just too much. So principal, when confronted, absolutely refused to back me up. Quite opposite. I heard that I need to apologize to a student because I'm not allowed to talk back to a student. And of course, I heard the same thing that I heard million times, that the school's priority is to make parents happy. So there is no such a thing as upholding discipline or supporting teachers, only make parents happy. So after that, it was a meeting with the principal, with the mother, with the girl, and with me, and I was crucified. And the funny thing is, the mother was yelling at me, using the same word the daughter used, B word, in front of the principal. The girl was sitting with this mocking look, and the principal was sitting and staring at the floor, saying absolutely nothing. any single word. So that was the moment I realized that this is ridiculous, and I was like, I'm not going to be part of that anymore. So have fun, but without me. And that was the moment when I decided that I just leave and never come back.
Wow, thank you for sharing all of that. You gave such a great summary of all the different things wrong with teaching, from students to administration to parents. And I would just love to hear more about the parents. What do you think is going wrong with parenting these days, especially here in America?
Here, never before. I heard the term gentle parenting. I've never heard that before. We didn't have such a thing. So we raise kids like we focus more on their feelings, how do they feel, than how they behave. So that was also a really big problem because, as I said, we needed to walk on eggshells because every kid I met was too sensitive or has some issues. And that was really, really weird to me because what do you mean my kids has some issues? What kind of issues? Well, some issues. What do you mean by that? So, like, only excuses that if the kid did something wrong, excuses. Uh, when the kid didn't do a homework, excuses. So parents try to excuse everything. Uh, that was pretty difficult because I was not able to teach at all, because I was not able to demand anything, because even if I ask anything, the kid complained to a mother or father, and then I needed to speak with the parents, and they asked me, why did you ask him? Why did you request him to stand up and say something? The smallest things that makes you a student, like be engaged or whatever. So I noticed that we had like two types of parents. First type, it was the parent who probably had the bigger knowledge about gentle parenting than I had. So excuses, 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 and making you an enemy. So you are not able to do anything. You are not able to teach. You are not able to help them to solve problems because the kid is too sensitive, and you are actually the enemy because you try to do something against my kid. And there was the other type of parents who didn't care. So on the other hand, you had peace, of course, because nobody really cared. But on the other hand, when and that happened in a kindergarten, when the parents didn't appear to pick up the kid many times, saying, "Oh, I forgot. Do you forgot you have a kid?" It wasn't not the one. It wasn't the one time. It was 6, 7, 8 times. I forgot. Okay, so completely a nightmare. It was a nightmare to work with them because we had parents who were very, very demanding things, and in the same time we couldn't do anything because how can I teach your kid or how can I do something with your kid when you don't allow me to do anything, even speak to your kid? And on the other hand, kids who were really lost and they needed help, and parents who are absent and there was nobody to speak to. So I could say that I met maybe 5 parents during my career here who were really engaged. So this is just my 5 fingers. And of course, when it comes to this gentle parenting, it's another type of people who are probably the worst nightmare of a teacher. So people who try to blackmail you or basically keep saying that they report you or sue you. So that's why, as I said, my colleague who's still a teacher wakes up very, very nervous and go to school very, very nervous because he says, I don't know what's going to happen today. Who's going to sue me? So, how can you teach in that kind of environment? And of course, no cooperation between parents, teachers, administration, nothing like that. So that was difficult.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm kind of curious, what was it like trying to actually get the kids to learn? Did you feel like you had to pass everybody and just pretend they all had A's, or what was that like?
Oh yes, oh yes. That was the thing. That, as I said in the beginning, that parents are more into kids' feelings than anything else. Well, teachers needs to do the same. So we need to do everything to make them happy, which is we need to keep saying that you are great, you are doing great, even if you are not doing great, because you can discourage them. So then there is a problem when the failure comes. It's a disaster because they are not prepared for that. And of course, schools nowadays need to lower standards because sometimes it's just not possible to make kids pass, and then it really looks bad when it comes to documentation, right? To numbers. So we need to make them pass because it really, really looks bad. And sometimes I had kids, let's say they were in second grade. I had two kids like that. And I could say there is a problem, for real, some issues, but parents were in denial. So what the school did? They passed. So probably now they are in fifth grade, I believe. And I don't think that they know better. They know more. They are more skilled. Probably they are still on the same level. But it looks good because many kids passed, right? So yeah, we needed to do this. We just needed, even when we preparing documentation, sometimes we were forced to lie that this kid is doing great.
And did you feel a lot of pressure just to raise kids' self-esteem in school too?
So there's one thing that I notice here. Of course, this is completely different culture. And I noticed that here everybody needs to succeed. I have no idea what does it mean, but everybody has to succeed. And the most offensive word is that you can call someone, use that word to call someone, is a loser. And that I also don't know what does it mean, because what do you mean by success? Being a great homestay mother, it's a great success. So being a working mother is a great success. And here it's like just one type of success, which means you are popular, you have a lot of money, and this is what all we should do. So if you are not like that, you are a loser, and it starts very, very early. So when it comes to self-esteem, how can we help them to build this confidence when we don't have even tools to do this? I remember, because I was born in communistic Poland. It was a communist there. It was a completely different system. And then I was raised in a post-communistic Poland. And I was a witness how the system is changing. So we had a completely different experience. So for us, being successful, it was to survive, to be persistent, to fail, but then get up and walk again. And this is what they taught us at school. That is not about being great. It's, I believe the Churchill said something like that, that success is just go from one failure to another failure without losing your enthusiasm. So that was our philosophy, that we need to learn that the life it's not very easy, but we can make it. And here nobody prepares kids to a failure because failure doesn't exist. So even with grades, I noticed that it's also changing, especially in lower grades, that you need to give them grades or prize them just for an effort. Okay, so I have to prize everybody because I can't say, oh, you did greater progress, for example. Everybody's on the same level. It's not true. So that's why I believe we have so many sensitive kids. It's not about being sensitive. It's about nobody never prepared them for a failure. Nobody prepared them at home and nobody prepared them at school because we are not able to do this. So, of course, you can protect your kid, make the kid happy at school, but then eventually they will leave. And there is a real world full of failures. And then what? Then the kid, from being sensitive, is going to a stage where the kid is depressed and on meds because nobody never told the kid that this is life. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. It's not possible that all the time is great. And this is what they try to tell us, that you need to show them how great they are. So even if you are not great, even if you are doing nothing, zero effort, you need to be prized. Why? So what's the point of doing this? And I was graded. Teacher were harsh when I was a kid. It was a really, really great discipline. We all survived. We are successful, whatever in any meaning of that word. So it's possible. But this is like, I feel like this is like a vicious cycle because it starts at home. So because parents don't want to see that, they don't want to put some effort even to work with teachers. So when the kid has like a real issues, and I'm not talking about conditions, I'm talking like issues because of the situation when parents don't have time or they are bullying at school. So nobody really talks to that kid. They put the kid on meds because it's much easier to put kids on meds, make them happy and calm, than actually raise the kid. So that's why I noticed that many kids, very small kids, are on meds because it's for convenience. Kid is quiet, there's no problem with the kid, so I don't have to do anything. And then there is a bigger problem because we created very unhappy, very dysfunctional adult people. That's why I'm saying this is like a vicious cycle. When the kid is like that because nobody cares about it and nobody has time, which in New York City, it's a huge deal because it's a huge city. And if you're a parent with 3 jobs, and then you need to, you have a distance between school and your work, which is like 2 hours, it's like really difficult to find some time for a kid. Plus, I was also a teacher in after school, so I felt like kids were just abandoned, like someone just dropped them off at 8 o'clock at school and then picked them up at 6 or 7. So it's basically like a storage. And then parents just pick them up and took home without doing anything else except maybe a dinner. So that was something very new to me that I couldn't really see, except maybe few parents effort to really do something about that kid I already had. So those kids were very lonely with many issues. And I believe now if they meet someone who is very similar, they start a relationship, then they start a family, what actually can bring to that family or to that relation? Probably the same. So then they will have kids and they are going to raise kids in the same way. So there is a huge problem. And I think this is the problem not only here. But this is something that I noticed here that was really, really new to me. And I really believe that the society will wake up soon to do something about it, because we are going to have a very, very dysfunctional future generation.
Yeah, absolutely. You've done such a good job at painting the big picture of what is going wrong. And it really helps to hear an outside perspective, because I think that you can see that it's possible for kids to be raised well. They can learn, they could be strong, they can learn self discipline, they can respect elders. But since here in America, there's some people, like you said, they've never seen respectful, hardworking, smart kids that know how to respect people. So I just think, like you said, it's this cycle. And schools just feel so much pressure to not point out the obvious. They rather point out teachers and say that it's teachers' fault. Everything is teachers' fault. And it takes away really some of these kids' only chance for a better life. Education is their only chance. And now schools are ruining that too. So I'm just curious, what do you think it would take to even begin to fix this giant problem that we have here?
We need to bring back respect and discipline. And as I said, when I said discipline, especially here, everybody's so scared, because it's like, as I said, I'm talking about work camp. But when I say discipline, I mean just rules. There are no rules. To be honest, I notice only in Catholic schools and Jewish schools and Muslim schools, where religious schools, there is something like that. It's very similar to school I was in when I was a kid. It wasn't a religious school, but I can say the rules are very similar. And they're really simple rules. We are respectful, and it starts with respect, like everything starts with respect. But first, rules. And I also believe that the definition of freedom is a very, very misunderstood. Freedom doesn't mean that I can do whatever I want, because like my freedom has some limitations, and that limitation is the freedom of another human being. And I don't know why, but I can see that there is a big problem with rules. That put some rules is something that is against my freedom, which is my right. That's correct. This is your right. But with that comes a great responsibility, which means respect, which means rules, and so on. So the future, that it won't be a disaster, is just to bring back rules. And I really can see the difference, even on subway, which I love because I can see so many things there. And this is a great social observation. I can see kids in uniforms. So of course I can see what is written there, so I know what school it is. And then I can see kids without uniforms. Two completely different types of people. Those people, no rules. I mean, kids in uniforms. They maybe don't like them, but they need to follow the rules. Also, I can tell you about a great example. I had two girls, Muslim girls, who were sent suddenly to religious school, to a Muslim school, where they needed to have a uniform, they needed to study Arabic, and I could see the difference because they still were coming to the after school, so I could see them. It was a huge difference when it comes to her behavior, attitude, and everything before and after. And when they started to attend that school, I heard, no, I can't do this because my teacher told me I can't do this, or my teacher would be really, really upset if I would do this. So it's possible. I'm not saying you have to send your kid to religious school, but rules. This is the only way we can survive, because without rules we can't really survive. And also we can't survive without education. So sometimes when I'm saying that teacher, this is the most important profession in the world, there is nothing more important, there is nothing higher than that. And everybody's like, it's you are not right. Yes, I am right, because even a doctor must be taught by someone, right? By a teacher. So everything starts from education. So if we destroy that, we have nothing. We can just go back to caves because there is nothing there. So I can only recommend a great book I read recently. It's Collapsing of Parenthood. It sounds really serious. uh, it's written by Leonard Sachs, who really knows what he's talking about. And I can recommend it because it's a really wise book. But when I read it, I just closed the book and I was like, well, he didn't say anything new to me. Because he's saying about the world I was raised in, but that was a different culture. And this is what he's writing in the book, that he visited 20 something countries to compare the education and the way of raising kids in different countries. And I was very proud because also he was writing about Poland, and as a great example of a country with good education and good values and a good country to raise kids. So I was like, if there was a need to write that book, it means there is a lack of something and we need to work on it. And even if I left the school, I didn't leave education, and I'm going to continue that. Maybe not like that, because as I said, I don't feel like there is a place for me, and I don't think that if nothing change in the future, many so great teachers here who are really great, because I met amazing people who really dedicated their life to teach kids, and they quitted after 20 years. I know a person who quitted after 20 years, and she said, I felt like I wanted to do this to the end of my life, and now I just can't even think to go back. So I believe I just listed the reasons why teachers here are quitting. And this is really alarming, because if good teachers quit a job, who's going to teach?
So true. Well, I have a kind of a random question. I'm just curious, in Poland, was it normal for kids to come home and do homework and read, or did they spend most of their education time in class and they played at home? How did that work?
So this is very funny thing, because recently in Poland there is a discussion about stop giving homework, because this is what Americans do. Okay, I don't know which part of America it is, but my kids had homework. So I hope it's just a discussion, they forget about it. But the one thing I notice, it's we are more focused on a practical side of learning. When I was a kid, and as I said, it was that the moment when the communists collapsed and the new system was growing. I was 9 or 10 years old, and we were learning CPR. We were learning what to do in case of fire, flood, war, because based on our history, we needed to be prepared for that. So we were learning that kind of things. We were learning everybody, despite of the gender. We were learning except geography, history, literature, and so on. Everybody needed to know how to cook, how to make things, how to how to behave. Like we had like lessons of good manners. We had something that we never called a sex education. I can't remember how we called it, but on a very, very young age, we were really prepared for that. So a lot of things were going on at school, but we had homework. We had projects, so it was like after school we were going home and we doing our part. But as I said, many things it was like practical things to do something at home. And what was important, very often we needed to engage parents. So parents needed to spend more time with kids anyhow, because school required that parents need to be a part of the project. But when it comes to the very low level of education, like preschool or kindergarten, this is something that is completely different, because till 7, kids are not really learning, like, as I said, cognitive learning. It's more like play based. So they learn how to use things, how to create things, like very, very practical things. And things like math, letters, how to count, how to write letters, and so on. It's much later. And also we are very serious about like emotional development. So a lot of teachers spend a lot of time with kids to teach them how to recognize emotions, how to deal with that from the very, very young age. So I feel like at the end, when they are 7, they finally can start to do boring things. So, like, really learn something that is more in theory. But they are prepared to, I don't want to say for life because they are too young, but it's like a very, very bold line between the time when they spend. I mean, this is like different. We don't have like this kindergarten, preschool, it's like all together. But when you are 7, you go to a real school. So when you go to the real school, you know that you are going to the real school, and you know that this is serious. You know how to behave. You know how to deal with many things, including your emotions, and then you can just learn how to write, how to read, and so on. So this is also, I believe, a huge difference, and I believe it's very beneficial.
Wow, that's so interesting. And I'm also curious, what are some of the differences you've seen with the way America tests kids and like standardized testing and how it's done in Poland?
So basically, because I was also preparing kids for those tests, it was mostly about how to pass. It wasn't really about how to learn something or how to learn something, but it was mostly about tricks how to pass. And then this is what I heard from one of my students: I don't really want to have 100% or even 90%, because I need like 65%, and then there is nothing about my percentage. So why do I need any effort? I just need to pass. So tell me, how can I pass? And I told him, because this is all about. And as I said, it changed a bit since I was a kid, and also since I left Poland and being a teacher there. So now I see that it's more and more tests. But before, we didn't have such a thing like a test, or nobody never heard about something like multiple choice. We never ever had something like that, because that was a very simple way to guessing, and you need to know. And if you don't know, you need to explain why you don't know. So it was more about we didn't have anything like answering the question yes or no, you always needed to have arguments. So mostly we were writing essays or we were preparing projects. There was never such a thing as a test. And that was good because I remember as a student, once it was a question about some book. Why do I like this book? And I wrote that I hate this book. And I just gave arguments why I hate it. And I got the the highest note because the teacher said, "Wow, you were really thinking about it. You first of all, you really read that book. Second of all, wow, you have opinion. That's amazing." So it was more about critical thinking. And as I said, it's probably changing right now, maybe because lack of time, I don't know, but it was more about critical thinking. So you could be wrong sometimes, but you needed to give your opinion about it, just or just defend yourself. There was no such a thing like knowing. So, but also there is a way how we were learning and we were teaching kids. It was not about knowing everything, but it was about to know how to find it or how to be smart enough to find a way how to get the answer. And I remember that when I was studying IT. So my lecturer on the first in first class, he said, if you think that IT people know everything, you are very wrong. IT people know how to find the answer. Usually Google it. Usually by Google it. And he was right. So I believe that was the way of teaching kids, and that was the way how we learned stuff, how to find the answer, not to how to memorize things, but how to find a way and how to find a solution. And nowadays everybody has access to internet, everybody has access to Google, and still people don't know how to find things, even if they have the phone, and it's like 3 seconds to Google it.
That is so true. And just kind of speaking of phones, I was curious, was that a big problem for you in class with kids? And what did the administration do in those situations?
It was a huge problem because there was no ban at all. Of course, there was a ban for teachers, and this is what we were hearing on every single meeting. Don't use your phone, no matter what. You can, because you are giving a bad example. But in the same time, kids could use phones. And that was really, really bad, not only because that was rude, but we knew they are able to record it. And you have no idea what they are going to do with that. They could take your pictures, they could record you, and then you can see yourself, I don't know where, or they can just use it against you. And to be honest, now when we have AI, I don't know if they need a phone to prepare or fabricate something. So, as I said, that was like double standards. They could do this, we couldn't do this. We are not allowed to take the phone. We are not allowed even to say that you need to put your phone in your bag.
That's rough.
It
Well,
is, it is. And when I compare it, because of course, when I was a kid or a teenager, there was no such a thing as a cell phone, so it was much easier. But when I was a teacher, it was normal that teenagers had phones, but there was a ban. They were not allowed to use it. And of course, it wasn't like, oh, you can't use it, so probably they won't use it. There was a special place. They just leave phones before they enter the classroom. And after that, they can just take it back. So there was no problem with that. And nobody never said anything. They just agreed to that. Parents never complain about it. And here, as I told you the story about the girl whose mother told her that she can call whenever she wants, and then everybody, when I say everybody, I mean administration, just agreed to that. So the girl had the phone all the time, and to be honest, she was all the time on the phone, and that was okay. And when we started to protest, we heard that she has a right to have it, to do this, and that's it. So of course she has a right, but she also have some obligations. But nobody never said about obligations, only about rights.
And I'm kind of curious, we've heard some of the bad situations with American teaching. What's the worst situation you would have in a Polish classroom, and then how would that be handled?
Ooh, when I compare the worst thing there and the worst thing here, it's like, two different. It's a piece of cake in Poland. But I remember one situation when I felt like really not only not comfortable, but I felt really scared. Because it was a school for teenage boys, and that was they were seniors, so you can imagine very tall, very muscular young boys, and just me, 5'4". So there was a situation when one boy tried to run the classroom. And as I said, when you have like 20 young boys, it's really hard to maintain a discipline. So I remember once he started to talk back, he was very aggressive. And I was really scared because I was alone with 20 boys. I have no idea which side they are on, mine or his. And that was just like I just snapped. I said to him, "Get up." And then I just told him, "I know you don't like me, and I don't care about it. You have a right to not liking me, but you have to respect me." And that was a silence. I just couldn't believe I did it, because I didn't know what will be the next step. Like he comes and punched me in the face. And it was a silence. And he said, "Okay." And that was that. And I had never ever any problem with him. So as I said, that was the worst because I was really scared. Like physically. I felt that I'm really, really scared. But I really can't say. Of course, it wasn't perfect. It was some arguments with parents, with kids. But the one thing I can tell you for sure, it was never a situation where the principal or admin wasn't on my side. So whatever it was, they were always on teacher's side. They could talk to them about something face to face, but never in front of parents or kids. So my experience is really, really good because of rules. Of course, it wasn't perfect, but I've never ever felt I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, that was really, really helpful to see that comparison. And I'm kind of curious, if you could just speak to America and give them one message, what would you tell them?
Ah, to whole America or to parents?
Either one or both, either.
So I believe that we need to work together, because until schools, teachers, parents, administration restore the authority, education, but not only education, in general, the way we live, the way we act will continue to decline. And we need to just really work together, and we just listen maybe to others instead of saying about my rights and my feelings. As I said, you have your freedom, but your freedom is limited, because when it starts the freedom of another human being. So let's start to talk, like let's talk to cooperate instead of blame on each other. So just like be united, be together, and really be a little bit nicer to each other, because this is something that nowadays it's really really bad. People stop to smile, people stop to even to say hello to each other. So we really need to back to our humanity, otherwise, as I said, we can go back to caves.
Thank you so much, Karina. This has been an excellent interview, and I have just loved every minute of hearing your experiences. And I know that your experiences will resonate with so many people. So thank you again, Karina. Audience, thank you so much for
Thank
watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and comment below. And if you ever want to interview with me, feel free to email me at teachertherapytrish@gmail.com. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.